I'd like to call the executive meeting for the month of June, I guess for the month of July 2023 to order.
To the point of order,
Yes, sir.
Madam President, advisory committee,
Advisory
right?
committee.
Call
Advisory. I do
Correct,
apologize. Thank you.
it.
All right. We'll start off with our roll call. Just one.
Ms. Babbitt?
Here.
Ms. Bourgeois?
Here.
Ms. Sharpton?
Here. All right. Item 2A is to consider approving a change in board member compensation. So the purpose of this meeting is to simply discuss if this item should be brought to the board agenda. So just to make sure everybody's on the same page, the discussion is to decide if it should go to the board for the July 15th. So, Mr. Martin, are you speaking? Mr. Duplantis, are you speaking?
I can start.
You can go ahead and start us
This
off.
item was brought, obviously, by a board member, Mr. Duplantis. This goes back to early 2018. The board changed the compensation. The board was in financial trouble in 2018, and there was a lot of community talk about reducing the board size. As an alternative to reducing the board size, the board cut its pay in half. But then in the years later, the board actually cut itself in half. And so now that the board is now a 9-member board, Mr. Duplantis has brought for the board's consideration a potential agenda item that would restore the state rate of $800 a month.
So before we continue with any discussion or I would like to go ahead and just remind you of the policy that we did add about adding items to the agenda. So any request to place an item on the agenda by either a member or third party who wish to appear before the board shall submit their request as follows. So A, all topics that the board member or individual group wish to place shall be typed and received in the superintendent's office no later than 5 days preceding the scheduled meeting, which has all been done, with a brief outline and overview and as such. That's all been taken care of. B says the advisory committee, and this is the step that we are on right now, of the board shall review the requested item or topic and ascertain whether the topic or item is proper for placement on the board's agenda. The committee will consider the following. So we, in essence, have a selection of questions that we put together. And so if you don't mind, I'll take a second and I'll read through those questions so that everybody's on the same page. Question 1 says, does the topic or item have an educational purpose and is it within the actionable jurisdiction of the board? Question 2, is the topic or item for informational purposes only? Example given, the item is not within the actual jurisdiction of the board. And if so, will the board's meeting be better served by dissemination of the information to the board outside of the meeting? Number 3, is the topic or item covered by a policy or procedure of the board or law of the state of Louisiana such that consideration of the topic will circumvent the policy, procedure, law, and or violate or interfere with an administrative process? 4, is this a matter that should be properly referred to a standing committee of the board for consideration before the referral of the full board? 5, any other relevant factor that might be determinative of the decision to add the topic to the item or agenda. So those are our 5 rubric style questions to determine if this item is to be placed on the agenda. So I'm assuming that we go ahead and we need a motion. Motion by Ms. Bourgeois, second by Ms. Sharpton. All right. So from there, we'll go ahead and start off with public comment. I do have a blue card for you, Mr. Ron Tapier, 110 Bourgeois Street, Graceland. So and it's an information only.
Yes.
So please remember we do set the timer for you. All right.
Thank you, President Babbitt. Exactly one of the things I want to do, I actually have that policy. I believe this meets all 5 of those criterias. The only other thing is on 4, I think you can refer it to policy and procedure. Other than that, I think it clearly needs to go to the full board to be voted on. I do not support the pay raise, but I do believe it needs to go to the full board to be voted on. All nine members are going to get paid. All 9 members should vote on it. That's my opinion. So if you have any questions, more than happy to take them.
I would like to make a comment there, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I actually requested that it come to advisory to go straight to the full board because I thought it would be best if it was something that we all discuss as a group rather than discussing 3 and then again. My personal opinion is it's like you just said, it's something that everybody should have the opportunity to weigh on at the same time. Absolutely. So that was my thought behind it and asking that we go from here to the board agenda.
And I completely agree. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Bass.
you so much. Okay. Any other public comment? Now we'll open it to board comment. Anybody want to start us off?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
I know the reason that compensation was cut. And I know there's discussion going around about this being a pay raise, which I don't think it's a raise, it's a reinstatement of the rate of pay that was formerly since 2018. I believe that's what you said. My question is, are there any other boards in the state of Louisiana that are being paid $400 a month for their services?
Mr. Martin has done extensive research on this, and he has some information for us. Do you want to share information today? How would you like to
I
handle
mean,
it?
look, she asked a question, I don't mind
Absolutely.
answering. The overwhelming majority of school boards across the state receive the state established rate of $800 per month. In the region that Lafourche is in, Lafourche stands alone as the only one that I was able to find that receives a $400 a month stipend. In my research, Terrebonne, Assumption, Ascension, St. Bernard, Jefferson, Orleans, St. James, St. Charles, all of the region is all at the 800 and has been for the many, many years that it's been at that.
Thank you.
I just want to say that, again, I agree with you, Ms. Shaughnessy. I don't view this as a raise, I view it as a reinstatement. And I would not be for this, it had not the teachers and employees all been reinstated to their level of pay, got all the steps back. And also, when you look at the election, there was several of us that were unopposed, which is really nice, but it doesn't look good in the way that people would want to serve on this board. So I feel like reinstating back to the $800 would be just a little bit more enticing for a business person. As an educator, we never look at money, and it's just in our blood. But as a business person, and we do need business people on the board, I feel like it'd be a little more enticing for them to be back at the state rate, well, for them to want to serve on the board. It's just kind of some of my feelings.
You had your hand up after her. So,
I had a question, for Superintendent Martin in his research. How many of those districts that you said, when asked their public to do a tax reform, because they didn't have money to give their teacher pay raises?
I don't know. Livingston.
Yeah, I think you and I discussed that.
I just want to go on record to say that I would not have presented this or brought this up as an agenda item without the teachers being compensated and the support staff also. It's something I wouldn't have done. I never voted for the lowering the board number, and that's public record. Never did I vote for 9. I didn't like the number 9 to begin with. I didn't like the idea that we were going to mimic the parish council. We are the Lafourche Parish School Board. Okay? And the other thing is that we had proved on paper if we reduce the size versus the numbers and we take care of not paying for this and that we got paid, compensated. Some of the board members had computers, printers, internet, paid for, okay? And some of us, like myself, elected not to ever charge mileage to come to the meetings. And then we also voted to reduce our pay. Now I just feel it's time for us to reinstate what were previously being paid. And I will still not do mileage whether we reinstate it or not, okay? And I do have that option to do so, as well as every board member. So that's just much I know how I feel about
Right, so if, I'm sorry.
And it's more for y'all, or, I don't know how this works, because I hear that maybe for Mr. DePlanis. Have any of us thought about the repercussions of what this potentially could do to us in the public? It's perceived a certain way, especially after tax reform. And when I've had teachers look me in the eyes and former teachers look me in the eyes and start crying because they feel we're not listening to them. And when we have coaches that spend more time, effort, and hours into our children, and they're only getting paid $600 a year, and their job is almost a 12-month thing, and then we're going to come back and ask, we are just at the beginning of fixing what was broken. And that is what concerns me. And my biggest thing is, if we want public support, which they gave us for this raise, to make sure we can promote our teachers and get them good salaries and keep teachers and acquire more teachers because they know the value of education, what are we sending when we just fixed that? And it wasn't just, like, no offense to us new members, it was a lot of work from the old members from 2017 to now. But what message are we sending? And that's one thing I hope that y'all can think about. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
But what impact does this have on our salary budget?
Yeah, extremely minimal. The total cost, even at the $800 a month, and then the $900 for the president, is still less than $100,000.
And to further expand, the savings to the school system with a 9-member board being paid at this rate is still $23,000 per year compared to what the cost of this elected board was to the district in 2018. You have to, you understand, you're not comparing 15 at 8, you're comparing 9 at 8. So it's still, in her budget, going to be a smaller number than it was in 2018.
Yes. So just to clarify, the actual motion that we have on the table right now is the motion that we will be voting on is to add the item to the July 5th regular board meeting, in which case we will be discussing as a full board. If anyone has concerns and supports and these different things, that we will go through all of those again. Okay, so if we have a first, we have a second. Is there any further comments? If not, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion, please. Okay, the motion passes, so the item will be added to the July 5th regular board meeting. Yes, ma'am.
You did a great job explaining what this was for, and I feel that was extremely important to understand. So I think the decision y'all made was the correct decision because it meets the criteria that's in policy. And I would like the public to know that, so know that y'all did what our policy states.
I appreciate that. And like I said, when I was speaking to Mr. Southgate, I do think that this is something that everybody needs to discuss. With that being said, that's the only business that we have before this committee tonight. So the meeting is adjourned.